a couple things to like keep in mind when you're considering putting yourself out there doing this kind of work with people you already know is listening. Listening to what it is that they are looking for.
Our next guest is going to really explain this is a good method for when you're starting out and you're booking those first clients, but it still works. It still works for me too. And that's really tapping into your own inner circle, your former colleagues, your bosses, like people who have worked with you. And I have Connie Hurlburt here to talk about doing a direct outreach to your inner circle. And I think this could be one of the scariest things, but like first steps in starting your freelance business, but it's something that I think people should revisit and put out there. Like, don't forget about the people who are in your life already, because we all know business owners who are hiring. A lot of my friends are business owners. And Connie, why don't you share what worked for you?
I have had quite a few clients that are like friends or just people that I've known from working together. I think it is relevant though to kind of share just a little bit of my story because and I think it's amazing that people have shared like the financial impact of the work group for them, but for me my motivation has always been a little bit different, and for me it's always been freedom. That's why I came to do this kind of work. I was a teacher, then I was in corporate, and my husband was a disabled vet with PTSD and a TBI. And I found myself just like constantly being pulled between trying to wear all of the different hats and never feeling like I was able to do any of it fully. And so for me, I just want to start with my ROI is field trips missed, recitals, art shows, doctor appointments missed, vacations that I had to ask a boss for time off for, zero in the last 5 years. And that's because I've been doing this kind of work, and been able to find people to work with. And so just to kind of go back to that whole desire for freedom, as many of us do, I was in MLM for a long time. And I had found some success with that, but it's very inconsistent. And in order to be super successful, you really have to like build a team. And I just did not love that. I was like, I want to get paid for my work. I don't want my income to depend on the work of other people. So I just never like broke out with that. We'll say that. But a thing about being involved in an MLM is that you tend to be around a lot of people who are interested in being entrepreneurs. And so I had kind of this like, I don't want to say steady flow, but like I had a large sort of opportunity as far as people to talk to. And I had kind of always wanted to run my business more like an online business as opposed to the way you see a lot of people running their, multi-level marketing businesses. And so I also had a corporate job that was drying up. And I was like, okay, do I want to go back to the classroom? Just for reference, this was 2019. So talk about timing. Can you
Oh,
imagine if I
God.
had gone back to the classroom in fall of 2019? And what ended up happening is my husband and myself both lost jobs in fall 2019, like late summer, early fall. And I took Emily's course and ended up here. And thank God. And actually, my first two customers they were not word of mouth. One of them I found in the work group, and one of them I don't remember where I found her. She didn't last very long. I fired her for reference. But somebody that I was working with who was on my team, was doing kind of like life coaching on the side. And she was like, I really need to build a website and I'm stressed out because I don't know how to do it and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, well, and basically just kind of told her, I know how to do that and started asking her questions to kind of figure out what it was that she wanted to do. And after I figured out what she wanted to do was something I could help with and said, you know, I took this course. I have a handful of clients. I know how to do this. And long story short, I worked with her consistently, launching courses and built her website for about 18 months. Yeah. And then that led to two other opportunities also within sort of like my inner circle of my team at that time kind of doing the same thing. And it very much turned into word of mouth. because one said something to somebody else, said something to somebody else about, "Oh, hey, Connie can do this." But a couple things to, like, keep in mind when I don't even wanna say pitching, but, like, when you're considering putting yourself out there doing this kind of work with people you already know is listening. Listening to what it is that they are looking for. And the second 2 clients that, I ended up having that were kind of in my inner circle, neither of them knew for months that I was doing this kind of work at all, much less doing it for somebody else, because I wasn't sure if what they were looking for was something I wanted to do. I knew it was something I could do, but I wasn't sure if it was something I wanted to do. So just really listening as they were dropping hints in conversation, about what it was they were doing and what they, were gonna need help with. Because for me, I hate doing social media. And that was like they were like, "Oh, well, I know I need to be doing this, and I know I need to be doing that." And I was like, "Well, I don't wanna do that, so I'm gonna keep my mouth shut." And not opening my mouth and putting myself out there, volunteering to do something that I know how to do that I don't want to do, because I know if I don't wanna do it, I'm not gonna do a good job, and these are people that I know personally, and I don't wanna burn those bridges and, like, have that be an added level of complication. So, I did wanna mention that, like, just listening, and that's something I do with all of my clients too. Hopefully, we're all listening to all of our clients, but, like, when I'm trying to acquire a new client, just really listening to what it was or what it is that they need. And I've had other opportunities working with people that I know, and this is a thing that I do both with them and, again, all other clients that I'm trying to acquire is I go to their website and I go to their social and I hit inspect, not on the social, on the websites. I figure out what platform are they using? Is it a platform I wanna work in? Because if it's not a platform I wanna work in, I'm not even going to put myself out there. Or if it is somebody that I know that, like, there's other reasons I may wanna work with them, I wanna know what it is that they're using, and I wanna be able to point out why they should use something else that I do wanna do. Uh, yeah. So,
No motive.
yeah, yeah. That's like my pitch email. It depends how close the relationship is, because sometimes it's like, I'm just gonna talk to you about it when I see you. Other times it's I'm gonna send you an email because maybe it is a more formal relationship. And my pitch email is very short, it's very clear. It's, "Hey, I don't know if you know that I do this, but, and I've looked at your website. You mentioned that you need help with XYZ. Here's what I think, would make a big impact that we could update on your website." And I usually try and give them some kind of timeline of how long it's gonna take, but I kind of give them the information ahead of time so that they can see, yes, I care, but also I'm an authority. Like, I know not
Mm.
only what needs to be done, but how to do it. And I love it when they come back and they're like, "How did you know I use Wix?" Or "How did you know I use WordPress?" Or "How did you know I use," and like that's such a little thing. And I usually just respond with industry secret and, a winky face. Because I don't want to let them know all my secrets, because then they can go find somebody else. So that was the first thing, listening. And then the second thing is doing my due diligence. And that's not only like on their tech and on their needs, but also, again, like, is this somebody I actually want to work with? There are lots of people I know in my personal life that I have zero, zero desire to have any sort of professional relationship with.
Mm.
And that kind of goes back to that whole listening thing. Like, are they gossiping? Are they constantly complaining? Is there some reason they will not be fun to work with? And if there is, even if it's very small, I just don't put it out there, because, like, you're not going to get those word of mouth referrals if that working relationship isn't also good.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's what Asai kinda talked about is, like, not just saying yes to the client because someone referred them.
yeah, that's another thing I wanted to mention is having boundaries in this business is
Mhm.
so important. I feel like especially when you're working with or for people that you know already, it is even more important. And I will say there was my most recently acquired client, I guess, that I got because I already knew her from, the previous business that we were in. That was a mistake I made early on. I wanted to work for her. I knew the new business that she was opening was going places.
Mm.
And because of that, I did not hold my boundaries early on as far as, like, she would ask for something, 9 p.m. on a Friday and wants it, before Monday morning, and I would do it because I wanted that job. And I'm not
Excited
going to
about
say
it.
well, I don't regret that necessarily because I do think that she was in a place where she needed stuff and she needed it fast, and I do think it put me in a position where I'm now an integral part of her team, but I do regret not, like, immediately after that first launch, sending my contract because we've been working together a year now, and she still doesn't have my contract.
Oh my gosh.
Now it's, like, awkward. Okay, so learn from me there. Send your contract and
Yes.
hold your boundaries from the beginning.
I think about my first couple clients, and this is before I really got in the online space, but it came from my place of work. I was at an arts council in Oklahoma City. I was connected in the community as a military spouse, as you can relate to. I knew I was just moving and I was going to start over. And I had a couple people actually approach me because of the work I did at work. And they're like, oh, could you help me write press releases? Could you help me do this? And so my first couple clients actually came from my work sphere, that inner circle. Now I didn't approach them, but people came to me and I wrote down under in your notes, asked questions. And you were saying listening, like getting some clarity before I was like, well, did you know I did this? I think none of us want to go in with a cold pitch and like hire me, proving energy and that desperate energy, but listening to what they need and then figuring out, is it me? Am I the solution? Is it a fellow unicorn? Is this person even, are they crazy? Do I even want to work with them? So I like that you brought that up. That's really important. And I think it's a distinguisher between the cold pitches, because what's wrong with that sales technique is people are making an assumption that you even need help. And I think that just like ruins it for me and I will never work with these people. I have a lot of virtual assistants who pitch me and I'm like, I'm a queen of virtual assistants. I have plenty of people like who I can work with, and I'm going to get someone who's gone through my course and in my community first and foremost. And so they're just like not paying attention. But when it comes to the inner circle, I think there's a direct ask you can do, but there's also the indirect if it feels weird. And you could say, do you know somebody who is looking for Pinterest, who is looking for a Wix, website? And that can sometimes feel safe for anyone who's new to tap into the circle, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think just also being aware of like this may sound simple, but just like being aware of what the people around you are doing. Like
Yeah.
whether it's your work colleagues who may have also their own business or something, or, you know, um, I don't know, it kind of just goes back to listening and asking those questions. And also kind of for me, it's also been very much about like being clear, like the last like 5 years of my life are like a really terrible Lifetime movie. And there have been times where I was really clear, I thought, on what I wanted to do and what I, was trying to do with my business. But what I focus on even more than that is what do I not want to do? What I do not want to do is work on weekends. What I do not
Yep.
want to do is be, available after 2:30 because that's when my first kid gets home from school. And just being very clear on this is like getting a little bit away from my topic, but just like, when I started doing this kind of work, it was the first time as an adult, and I had been a caregiver to my husband for a while at that point. It was the first time as an adult I took a step back and said, "What do I want my life to look like?" And as far as figuring out what I'm doing with my work, that means what do I not want to do with my work so that it's not interfering with my life? And like I feel like so often we do it the other way around. Like I can't have this in life because I do this in work. And even when I haven't been able to stay as clear and consistent on what I do want, I am extremely clear on what I don't want and not putting myself in positions where I find myself doing work that I don't want to do. As a matter of fact, I don't know if she's still here, but Cassidy is a friend of mine from high school. She was on this call. She took your course and she is doing work for one of my clients that my client was like, "Hey, can you help with this?" And I was like, "I can. I really don't want to, but I know somebody who might." And, really making use of those connections, whether in this case it's somebody that I knew personally, But whether that's somebody that I have a personal relationship or somebody else, that I know within the work group. And I think also it kind of like, I don't know, this is not going to come out right, but it's almost a power move to be able to tell a client, I don't want to do that and hand it off to somebody else because it like reverses the whole like desperation vibe.
Mhm.
Even when it's like, I don't know, obviously it depends on how you do it, but like, oh good, yay, Cassidy.
I mean, you teach your client this is it is a whole nother topic, and this gets into a lot of, like, client management, and I think this is why we need the work group to talk this out with people. Because I know you made your post about the weekends, and you're like, "From now on, I will no longer work weekends, period, end of story," and there's such power in that, but you're also teaching the clients how to treat you,
Yeah.
and you will find that if you are very clear on your boundaries and, "Oh, you missed your deadline. I actually can't get that done till next blah, blah, blah." You will find them reprioritizing because I know that. I have a lot I'm juggling, but secretly, I know who's more flexible and who will work with me, and we tend to take advantage of it. It's human nature. It's not, like, malicious. And so now that you've, like, gotten that power back, you will find that they will actually rearrange things to make it happen.
Yes, 100%. Just one final thing because it literally happened like an hour before this call started. I had a
Uh-oh.
client who someone on her team who is a new person on her team messaged me asking for a meeting. Well, that client last week had messaged me and asked me to, I'll just say, essentially be very sparing with my time because she's an hourly client. And so I went back to her and said, "Hey, you're this other person on your team has requested a meeting with me. Is it okay if I schedule that meeting?" And her response was, "Well, do I have to pay you to have a meeting with her?" And I'm like, "What?" Like,
Yeah.
it totally threw me off. But I was like, "Okay, Connie, like, you know how to tell her yes. Like, it's okay. You know how to do this." But all of my other clients I've worked with for such a long time, like, I can't imagine they would ever even that wouldn't even be a thought in their mind. So, and this is a newer client who I have the opportunity to teach better. So,
Yeah. You're, like, training them in a way, it
yeah,
sounds like, or instructing them, helping them do their job better for the client. This isn't like a, "Tell me about your weekend,"
yeah,
coffee chat. Oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
goodness.
and I was like, "This is somebody on your team requested this meeting with me. This isn't me being like, 'Hey, let's hang out.'" Like,
Yeah.
anyway.
I think these moments and being able to talk about it, I mean, this is why I started this community too, because I put up with a lot of crap. I hit some rock bottom. I did a lot of things wrong. Kind of a common theme here is like we do mess up, but once we learn better, and then once we have the reinforcement of knowing, like, actually, this is normal. And this is, the client management part of it is pretty sticky. It's hard because we're self-employed business owners and we're also working with clients who need to be happy in a way. But what you're really bringing home here is like just not every client is for us, and we need to be picky and listen and really pay attention before we jump in that relationship. Connie, where's the best place to connect with you?
Oh my gosh. Like, if you're not at my house, good luck. I know Megan put my Instagram in there. I have 14 unread Instagram messages that have been in my inbox for like 2 weeks. So,
Apparently, that's
it's
a sign you're really hot if you ignore your messages. So we're gonna
well,
bond with that.
I'll take that. Yeah. So just don't take it personally if you message me and I don't
Yeah.
respond. But I just like that's the season of life that I'm in right now. And like I'm not quite survival mode, but definitely not thriving at the moment. So like it is what it is. That said, my business is doing fine, and like
Yeah.
that's kind of the beauty of this. So
Yeah, you've had some really bad things happen in the last year, and I appreciate you showing up here. I appreciate you just keeping up the work and really just keeping your eyes on the prize when it comes to your freedom. Like, that perspective, I think that really hit home with a lot of us because we have the skills to go do the full-time jobs. A lot of us have chosen to leave them, and that
yeah.
really hit home. So thank you for sharing that.